wow, we do have a full house. And Jason and I thought about this, that you should have food so that you could eat, because we know that in the business community, you got to eat and run. But I got to tell you one thing. Today, you're going to have a very compelling roundtable. Thank you very much to the mayor on the strategic advantages of hiring veterans. So that's a bit of a teaser, a big teaser. Another big teaser is, if you didn't notice, yes, we have some parking problems, and I apologize wholeheartedly, because we also are having a job fair hiring event for veterans and their spouses next door. All part of this 2-day event. We're going to have to talk over the group in the top. We had standing room only for hiring folks, so we actually moved hiring tables to the second floor. So I got to tell you, if you did not understand what happened over this last 24 hours, I'm going to fill you in. But before that, I want to bring up to this podium the #1 guy in my book, Jason Young from Verona Villa.
Hey, everybody. Insert parking joke here. It's gonna say like knock, knock. Parking. Exactly. No, I'm sorry. Like Russ said, there's a lot going on here today. I kind of feel like P.T. Barnum, but my name is Jason Young, and on behalf of my team, I would like to welcome everybody to Verona Villa. We're honored today to be the host of the Mayor's Business Roundtable, a tremendous quarterly event. Thank you to Mayor Cheney for allowing us to host your Business Roundtable. Such a pleasure to see so many familiar faces, and while I know many of you have attended events here, we're excited to meet some of you for the first time. As today's host, I was asked to choose the topic of discussion. I wanted to focus on something which impacts us here in Frisco, our great state of Texas, and really our nation. I wanted to support one of Mayor Cheney's stated initiatives, and is a commitment to action, not just talking about stuff. I also wanted to shine a light on the greater Frisco business community. So a quick story. While we were under construction, I was driving with my wife, Christy, one Sunday after church, and I came up with the idea to give away a wedding. I thought that would be fun to do. So we call it the Hero Wedding Giveaway. And took the qualifier there was a first responder, public safety, military, and we also included teachers. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week, actually. Instantly, the Hero Wedding Giveaway came to be, and after a process that included people sharing their stories, we found 2 U.S. Army veterans that had met while deployed in Afghanistan, and we were able to give them an over $30,000 dream wedding. It was really exciting. It was fun. We did that on Veterans Day of 2017. So from those early days, without knowing it, supporting veterans was in our DNA of this place. What started out as a fun idea turned into so much more. We've made so many friends in the veteran community, and it has truly been a blessing to participate in that community. So flash forward to last spring, and we also partnered with Bent Tree Church. We are their Frisco campus for Bent Tree. They meet here every Sunday. So in the process of those discussions, Paul Miller from their team asked me if I knew much about wells. So in this case, the kind of well that produces water. He talked about how when you dig a well, things pop up around it. People gather around the well, as well as the well becomes the life force for a community. He then said to me that what we had done here with Verona Villa was dig a big well in the center of our city. It's so exciting to me to see over 70 companies in the next room having a hiring event for veterans and their spouses. Again, taking action, not just playing lip service and words. For those companies over there to see the heart and commitment our city has for growing businesses and innovation, as well as highlighting Mayor Cheney's mission that Frisco values veterans. We're putting ourselves on the map. with this initiative. Of course, my team and I look forward to the opportunity to work with all of your organizations, to introduce your solutions and products to customers, to recognize and empower your teams, to celebrate milestones, and also be a place for your personal event occasions. We have full coordination services and offer a personalized and customized experience, and we normally don't have hiring events going on during those events. So for today, I asked Russ Medina to spearhead this important event for me and with me. Russ is a retired Army veteran and graduate of West Point and is the executive director of NPower. NPower is a nonprofit who trains veterans and spouses in IT to place them in highly sought after corporate positions. Russ has brought together this two-day event, and I'd like to thank him for his devotion to veterans. Again, I know we're kind of joking about parking and it was a big pain, but at the same time, it's a result of the success that he had in going out into the business community and saying, hey, we're here in Frisco, we value veterans, we've got a great workforce, and companies flock to it. Originally, we had 40, we have 80 that showed up, right? So don't be too mad at us for having too much success in spreading the word as far as that goes. But anyway, Russ, congratulations, thank you. And thank you again for coming to Veronaville, and I hope you guys have a great afternoon.
We're having a high-level parking discussion there. Yes, we looked at this 4 months ago, and Jason said, we'd like a nice topic. Do you have a suggestion? And from that, just like entrepreneurs that we are, we started thinking about how to make this not a 90-minute lunch and a discussion, but we wanted to turn it into a real movement and something that would reach the community. And as Jason just talked about, something that really fell in line with Mayor Cheney's vision for supporting veterans. So we took this, I could have brought, no disrespect to a 4-star general, I could have had one right here, and you would have been awed. Quite frankly, they're retiring guys and our gals, and really I wanted to bring it home. So our veterans that need, and their spouses that need jobs, let me tell you what, they bring skills. They don't need a job because they're owed one. These folks are talented. These folks have soft skills, team building skills, leadership skills, in addition to the IT, cybersecurity, coding, programming kind of skills that we're training at NPower to get them a job. And we do it in a really quick way. But your support here in the community will help spread that word. So thank you for letting us grab the roundtable subject of basically strategic advantages by hiring a veteran. So I'm gonna go back on script. I already thanked Jason. I can't thank him enough for what he has done to support us here. I gotta tell you, it's no exaggeration. We had way more companies that wanted to knock on the door and come in and support this event. And the word's gonna start spreading, and so we'll have more veterans that'll contact us after this event. So I'm looking to extend this into more of a series, and with your support, you'll hear more about it, and we'll have more networking events that will bring veterans together. I would tell you as a shout out to the Frisco Veterans Advisory Committee, literally from 0 to 200% improvement when you go from 50 folks at a luncheon to 250 in the next 3 months. It's a great testament to what they're doing here in the Frisco area. I'd like to now introduce the panel. This panel in this roundtable, and I know I talked about 4-star generals, but I would tell you my boss is kind of my 4-star general. And she came in from New York. Her name is Bertina Ciccarelli, and she's the CEO of NPower. She joined NPower in 2016 of May. It's, as I mentioned before, a national nonprofit that hopes and creates pathways to economic prosperity by launching the digital careers for military veterans and their young adults in underserved communities. Ms. Ceccarelli, Bertina, is a graduate of Berkeley. She's an engineer and has a master's in business administration from Harvard. She's way smarter than me. We also have Dwayne Waking. Where is Dwayne? Dwayne? There he is, right up front here, from Boeing. They have a little office down here in Legacy West, in the suburbs down there. Dwayne's a senior executive of IT for Boeing, and he also oversees Aviol, another one of our large employers of veterans in Irving. Dwayne, prior to coming here, worked as an IT and Common Services, and also has many leadership positions throughout IT. He began his work at Boeing in Wichita, Kansas. Not Wichita Falls, but Wichita, Kansas. Next is Mark Rushing. Mark, where are you? Mark? There you are. Of course, you're right there. Mark's from City, and he's also part of Global, where he heads up Global Cloud Services. He's been at City for about 17 years. He knows everything IT. I'm just going to cut it short for you. Boeing and City have been big supporters, truth be told, to NPower, and we're very, very grateful for that. I'd also like to introduce the mayor of Frisco, Jeff Cheney. He said something about dramatic pausing from yesterday, but I got to tell you, thank you, Jeff. Thank you to Dana for big supports in this community. Without this, and really, when we say honor heroes, that's one thing. By recognizing heroes and veterans, by hiring them, yes, that's a real mission, and that's innovative. And that's what we talked about yesterday, where we recognized the University of North Texas. Thank you to UNT and President Smastrick, as well as City. And Congressman Sam Johnson's office. Is Gabby in the house? Gabby there, thank you. Gabby so eloquently recognized the efforts of UNT and City in supporting veterans and presented our nation's flag that had been flown over the Capitol to both UNT and the city. In addition to that, the mayor presented a proclamation for May 8th that recognizes UNT and City. So it was a really cool event. I invite you next time, because I think it is becoming a series to recognize companies that really are getting behind veterans and their spouses. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Tony Felker jumped all over it, has 55 identified companies. There's Tony's up front. Powered up by a little gal named Kathy Erickson, who, sorry, I caught you with your eating. I'm sorry. I won't say anything. So these 55 businesses have hired veterans, have veterans on staff, or have been initiated by veterans. And they've been recognized and they're part of the Frisco Chamber of Commerce. So great thanks to the Frisco Chamber of Commerce. And oh, by the way, NPower's a member. Thank you, Tony. I kind of like that approach of like not opening the door, locking it until we sign, but that's okay. Today we also have a moderator, Colonel J.P. Hogan. There's a guy down here with a cavalry hat on. You may not notice him, but he's a great pillar in our community. He's been here for quite a while, as you all know, as a retired colonel, but he has a lot of other interesting jobs, like the executive vice president for the Association of the United States Army, or a big proponent of the Guard, employment for the Guard and Reserves, and helping and understanding how they should transition. So he has a clear vision of what we need to do to help our veterans transition into our community and become great contributors and benefits, which you'll realize. So with that, should I talk about your great career starting when you were born in 1973? A couple of days before that, great. So when I mentioned Colonel Hogan's hat that means the Cav. And I got to tell you, I'm just going to leave it at that. If you want to hear some war stories, our veterans are great and wonderful, but I'm going to invite you up here. You have the podium.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. And Russ, thanks for the opportunity to do this. This is a passion of my life. Can I invite the panelists to come up here while I'm introducing myself here? And while I'm doing that, I wear this Stetson. It's not a hat, Russ. It's a Stetson, and I wear it for a very specific purpose. Number one, it is, in fact, authorized Army headgear for cavalrymen that served west of the Mississippi. It's what they used to wear in the late 19th and early 20th century. And now the 3rd Armored Cavalry, or the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment is now at Fort Irwin, training our units for deployment around the world, and they wear the brown Stetson. It comes from the 1st Cavalry Regiment, the very first and longest serving combat unit in the United States military forces. And I'm a member regimentally of the 1st Cav, so I'm authorized to wear this, so I wear it because I can. More importantly, almost 10 years ago now, I obviously was retired from the military. I was living here in Frisco and beginning to get re-engaged with what our veteran community needed, because I was decisively committed to that. And a guy by the name of Pete Cicerelli came through town. He was a retiring 4-star number 2 guy in the U.S. Army. And he had a message to America. And as a Rotarian, I went down to the Dallas Rotary Club and listened to what Pete had to say. And briefly, he said, we as an American community owe our military forces more than we can ever repay them. If we expect that debt will be paid by decisions taken in Washington, D.C. and communicated out to the nation, we will fail. It will only be delivered if we in grassroots America stand up and do the things necessary to support this veteran community coming home. And that call to action moved me. And since then, I've been involved in a number of things that Russ briefly attached to. But I learned something very significant in the intervening 8 years, and that the early message was all about what can we do to help veterans. It missed an incredibly important thing from a community's point of view, and what missed was the fact that the veterans coming back into the community were a resource that we could not afford as communities to let slip through our fingers. So it became important to me to start to dig into what's this value proposition all about. And believe me, I learned a lot, not the least of which is, and I was happy to hear Mayor Cheney parrot this yesterday afternoon, is that we as community leaders, business owners, owe it to our community and owe it to our businesses to connect to this resource coming home. Because quite frankly, it's a small group of people, and it's a small group of people that have been through a very significant vetting process. Not many people can serve our nation in uniform. Less than 30% qualify, either by virtue of education, by virtue of health, by virtue of moral turpitude, by virtue of drug addiction. They can't get into the uniform. And then they get in and they spend a period of time, 6 months, or in my case, 30 years, and you live in a world that's values-driven, that's values performance-driven, and it's about outcomes. And they learn to live like that. And then they come home to us. What company wouldn't want to sit down and talk to somebody like that? Now, the Texas Veterans Commission guy earlier today talked about his own experiences in this very self-same space. And he said, at the end of the day, if you're hiring, don't just look at that resume. If you got a veteran, talk to him. I'll never ask you as a business leader to hire a veteran. I will encourage you highly to interview one, because they will show you in that interview what that mysterious skill set that he's got or she's got from the military, how that applies to whom and what you're trying to do. These are valuable assets. And we as a community serve ourselves well, in my judgment, by talking to them. So we've done this in Frisco. We've started this process of valuing veterans. Mayor Cheney added that to his platform. And Jeff, if you could, give us some insights from the mayor's seat on why veterans are so valuable to Frisco.
Well, thank you, JP. And let me first welcome everyone. This is our third Mayor's Business Roundtable. I counted that right? Fourth. I didn't count it right. I want to first thank Russ Medina and InPower. I have finally found somebody more dangerous than me with a microphone. But thank you for all your work in putting on this program. We're so delighted to have you guys here. And, the leadership team in Frisco is surrounded by veterans. So the guy that's in charge is our Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, John Keating, that is here today, that has really led the charge. John, stand up and be recognized. Thank you. He's looking especially relaxed today because he won his re-election bid last Saturday. So if this would have been last week, you would have seen a different guy. Of course, we have other great leaders in this community. Will Sal, our current Mayor Pro Tem, is a veteran. Tim Nelson, another council member. And of course, Ron Patterson, who has been tasked with leading our Economic Development Corporation, our veterans. So, throughout the city of Frisco, you can see the influence that veterans has had in this community. Of course, the rest of us, someone said it great yesterday. There's a phrase that I told him I was going to steal when he said it to me, which is, his company not only supports veterans, but supports patriots, which are those people that support veterans. And I think that's what today is about. And the rest of the council is clearly a patriot, myself included, not being a veteran, but the rest of us do support, including Shauna Huffman, a council member who's here today joining us. Shauna, praise. Thank you, Shauna, for being here. So when we started looking through, the things that we wanted to make a priority as a city, just knowing the profound impact that the people that I've served with, the influence they've had on me in decision making, people like JP, who's been a trusted advisor of mine for many years, one of my most trusted advisors, as far as how we build out our leadership team. This was something that we looked at as a community, saying we can do better. We can do better. The community had already done a lot, certainly to recognize veterans and support veterans. But we wanted it to be a city recognized as, here in Frisco, we want to be the best at everything. So literally, we set that mission, which is we want to be the city in the country that is known to be the most supportive of veterans. And we are well on our way on that mission. So thank you. Thank you. But we couldn't have this event without me taking an official roll call. So if you're a veteran, please stand up right now and be recognized. Thank you. And then who's here from my Mayor's Veterans Advisory Committee? JP's leading that today, took the reins from Fred Rogers. We got a few back here. Josh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the support that you give me. I got to say, when I walked through that job fair this afternoon, it literally gave me goosebumps to see something like that happening in Frisco and hearing the story of the company. 70 companies showed up today, I understand, with the specific mission to put their message out to the world that they support veterans. They want to hire veterans. The things that JP just talked about, the reason they want to hire veterans, and then everyone that showed up. Sounds like a lot of people are going to get hired from today's event, something that very proud of from the committee. So thank you for all the leadership that made today happen. This one should be easy for me. I get to sit back and more listen to the great leaders we have here on the panel and why it's so important. But I'm so pleased of the things happening here in Frisco to support our veterans. For those that you don't know, we've started a veteran social, which we're going to have to continue to get bigger and bigger venues. Because I think our last one we had a few weeks ago, 250, I think I heard, veterans showed up to support each other and network, and they're continuing to grow. And as we were leaving, people were like, well, when's the next one? Is it next week? I was like, well, no, Well, we're doing them quarterly, I think, right now. We'll maybe move them up. So I joked yesterday that apparently veterans like to drink and they like to network. So those two things go hand in hand. With Councilmember Keating's leadership, the things that have happened, we've become a Purple Heart City here in Frisco. So we're nationally recognized for that. He took the mission to change out all of our flags in Frisco so we could fly 2 flags for POW MIA Day, something that has never been done in the city of Frisco. And we honor a distinguished veteran every single year. And so if you have any nominations, that's coming up soon, so please let us know. Our Mayor's Veterans Advisory Committee, the room is getting full because there are so many people here in this community raising their hand and saying, I want to be a part of what these guys and gals are doing. We have people like Sheena, who's like, I want to bring the women veterans into the mix. And so it is just so exciting and humbling to see what is happening. I wish I could take any credit. I can't, because all it was all the tools are already here in our community. All the right people were here. All the pieces to the puzzle were here. And all it took was a simple statement, which is we want to make Frisco recognized as the most veteran-friendly community. Everyone raised their hand, and they are taking the ball and running with it. And under JP's leadership, great things to come. So thank you, JP.
Thank you, Jeff. And he's modest in that actually leadership makes all the difference. And when the mayor shines the light on something, that presents you with a whole host of opportunities. And veterans, being folks who like to drink and network, they also like to get outcomes. They also like to make things happen. So that group of people in the Veterans Advisory Committee are just those kinds of folks, and I'm happy and honored to sit as their chairman. But it's a collective group of a lot of energetic people. Sheena got 250 people into a bar, but because veterans do like to drink and network, but she did great work doing that. And I've got a lot of people on that committee that are energized and doing things to bring this valuable resource together. To further up what I said earlier, as I began to crawl into what veterans are really all about, it became obvious to me that they represented a strategic element of the business case. It's one thing for a veteran to stand up and talk to you about how valuable veterans are. But I crawled into what the Society for Human Resource Managers is doing about this thing. And for the last several years, they've hosted a roundtable event in Washington, D.C. that started to peel back the business case for hiring veterans. And you've all heard what veterans bring to the table, but the SHRM guys and gals put together a report that said this is a strategic advantage. There are reasons why you as a company should be hiring veterans, because they bring to you skill sets and capabilities that will trickle down to your bottom line. There is money to be made in an organization by virtue of leveraging this precious resource called the veteran community of America. And Dwayne from Boeing Global Services, these guys do a lot of work in this space. And I'd like you, Dwayne, to give us the Boeing perspective of why you want veterans in your organization and how you go about getting them.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, we're excited to be part of Texas. We're new to Texas with Boeing Global Services. We've been here since July 1st of 2017. Not a big workforce yet. We've got about 80 people. How many here from Boeing? Oh, we got one. Sorry, Colleen Lyons is with me. Sorry, I had to keep up, So, and I'd like to, AV up here is one of our subsidiaries, so they're hiring. But when you look at the products we have, why hire a veteran is they've used the products that we build. Very much, and they get, all of them are very tight to the product that they build and the services they have. I've got several people in my own organization. I have a director that works for me that was a Marine, left when he got out of the service, went and worked on the line in St. Louis, the A-15 line in St. Louis, then rose up through IT, and now is a director within the Boeing company. Just great work ethic, the soft skills you talked about, the leadership skills that they bring to the table. We can teach people the technical side. More than likely, we're going to change the way that they do their work, but really excited to have those people as part of our team. It's about 15% of our workforce across the business. We've hired 8,000 veterans since 2011. It's a big part of where we're going. Dennis Muhlenberg, our CEO, just announced a $100 million investment in veteran programs for our organization, and it just is a huge part of where we're going and where we want to be as part of the community.
Well, Dwayne, thank you. And a $100 million investment in this thing is a graphic representation of the strategic value of a veteran to their organization. And 8,000 hires in the last couple of 3 years, that's a big commitment too. Mark, with Citigroup, you guys do a ton of work with veterans as well and bringing them into your workforce. Can you give us some insights from the Citigroup point of view here?
Absolutely. I'd echo a lot of what was just said about the value of bringing veterans in. And I love the way Russ makes the point of, you don't hire a veteran because you owe a veteran a job. You hire a veteran because you owe it to yourself to have veterans working in your organization. I mean, the the benefits that you get from bringing veterans into your organization, just from the willingness to do what it takes to get the job done, to the outcome-focused work, to the culture that they bring to your organization as well, is profound. And so we have a veterans network that operates globally. We do a lot of work with NPower, which has just been a wonderful program for us. And some of the best staff I've had come through my organization have been veterans, and one of them is here today. So, and one that has not worked for me quite yet, but I will get there with. So absolutely, it's just been a wonderful experience working with NPower, and certainly the veterans that we have in our organization. We encourage them to get involved in these networks and make sure that they're supporting one another through the organization. And that support that veterans are able to bring to one another makes them all that much better as employees as well.
Thanks, Mark. One of the things that's, I don't want to use the word difficult or hard, but it's an interesting challenge, and that is to get veterans from the culture of uniform into an organization, to connect them, to fine-tune some skills, to get them connected back into their communities. And organizations like NPower do great work in that space. So, Bertina, can you talk to us a little bit about the things that NPower is doing to help those veterans in that journey from being a uniform service provider to being part of this collective thing called our economy?
JP, thank you very much. So NPower, in fact, I'll just start by saying we're a national nonprofit. As Russ said, I came in from New York yesterday, but Texas is an incredibly important market to us because of the vast numbers of veterans who choose to make particularly North Texas and Frisco their home and to build a career here. And so, our sincere hope is that we can do even more in North Texas to translate the skills that veterans develop in the military into their professional careers. But really, the broad mission of NPower is to serve as a connector and translator, particularly for IT jobs. So we have a number of veterans we work with who might not necessarily have had any kind of a technical experience or job in their military lives, but who are terribly interested in IT, and they find us through the Texas Veterans Commission or through local workforce boards, through friends and family, and they enter NPower, which is a free training program. It's 15 weeks, fast, half day. We find that the veterans we serve and their spouses are very quick learners, don't need a ton of additional technical knowledge, but enough to be able to qualify for an industry-recognized A+ certification. And what has proven to be most valuable about the program that we hear from the veterans we serve is then the 7-week internship program that we connect them to be able to have that professional experience and on-the-job learning. Those internships are with Fortune 500 companies like Citi and Capital One and AT&T and many others who are in this room. And we have about an 80% rate of then those converting into full-time jobs. What's even more interesting, right, because that internship is not like a college internship, not to knock that, those are great programs, they tend to be summer positions, but these are very targeted and are structured in such a way that help our students get very specific skills important to that company. So we want to work very closely with the corporate community to make sure, right, that the students coming out of our program have the kind of technical skills needed for those positions. But we've also begun here in the state of Texas a really very innovative program with the Department of Labor. We're one of the first IT generalist registered apprenticeship programs. And so, one of the partnerships we have with Citi through the Worldwide Technology Company is placing our graduates into 6-month apprenticeship programs. It's a nationally portable designation that once students go through that program, they have a much deeper and broader set of technology skills that they could bring anywhere. And I would just echo what we hear from so many of our corporate partners who are committed to hiring veterans is great problem solvers, fantastic leadership skills, team players, on mission, and generally much better retention rates. And so it's by far a competitive advantage to hire veterans.
Bertina, let me expand about, you said something earlier this morning about professional development opportunities that you bring to the table for these veterans in transition, and that's, in my judgment, a very important piece that you're bringing to the table. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, sure. As my colleague here from Boeing mentioned, we can't train on all the technical skills that a company might need. We can provide the basics, and then we know many of our corporate partners really want to train on the specifics for those jobs. But what's so important for the veterans we serve is the access, right? And the networking, and the introduction to a network like what we have across the other side of the hall is just the introduction to those 80 companies who have expressed an interest in hiring the students who we serve, and other veterans too. So to be able to create those networks and open doors, and to create the kind of community that builds interest and commitment for veterans is a big part of what we stand for.
Thank you very much. If I can step off script for a second. Roxanne, where are you at? Roxanne Griffin. Roxanne is from the Department of Labor, and she works on the broad space of connecting veterans to companies with a whole host of programs, some of which Bertina addressed here. But Roxanne, can you give us some DOL insights here in this whole space? There's Russ with a mic for you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, JP. So I like what Bertina talked about with the apprenticeship program, and we hardly have any nonprofits that gets funding from Department of Labor to build out an apprenticeship. But what we have done where employers are concerned is that we've worked with them within their industry space and created industry certified programs that they can then take transitioning service members and execute somewhat of a training, whether it be in-house or in partnership with another organization like a college, university, or even an institute like NPower, and get those trained up to the standards that you need. And we have a lot of criteria, so we can build this out your way. I like to borrow the Burger King logo and say, you can have it your way, because we honestly do that. I've never built out two programs that are exactly alike. For example, Amazon came to me and said, hey, we've created our cloud network and we need web services technical personnel. And I said, okay, how many do you need? And they said, 1,000. And I looked at her crazy. And I said, I can't give you 1,000 transition and service members who are interested in web services because they don't have the skill sets and the certifications Amazon need. But we can train them to do that. I'm happy to announce that about 3 months after that conversation, we approved their apprenticeship program. They've already hired their 1,000 and they're working on the 5,000 number right now. So it's initiatives like that helps to grow organizations. We also have other programs that we partner with. For example, there's something called a career skills program or pre-apprenticeship, where we have soldiers who are within 6 months of getting out of the military, and they're interested in transferring into another career, maybe something they've never done before. And we create these programs on military installations. They don't get paid, but they get to come for 6 months and train with that company and get the technical skill, aptitude, and certifications. And once they leave the military, they can now be hired by companies on the outside. We have companies like GM and Raytheon and others who do this right here at Fort Hood. There's about 3,500 of those built out in different career fields, from finance and insurance to IT and HVAC technician, truck drivers, you name it. I actually yesterday drove from Temple, Texas, where I signed the registered apprenticeship program for McLean Trucking, here to NPower to be at the event last night because I had promised Russ I would be here. But those are the initiatives that we do. We go out and we create these veteran initiatives and veteran hiring opportunities with companies to boost that industry and build the economy. I'm really proud to say this, and I'll stop, JP. We're right now nationwide at 3.9% unemployment rate for veteran and non-veteran, so job seekers as a whole, but we're at 2.7% for veterans. That's phenomenal.
Thanks, Roxanne. All of these programs are of tremendous impact. Sometimes getting people connected to the programs and then ultimately to hiring entities is a frustration of mine. But DOL and the Department of Defense and the Texas Workforce Commission guys are making great strides in that. But let me get back on script and ask Dwayne, in your relationships with Empower, what's the product you're receiving? How's this working for you?
Well, I'm on the board, so, I need to be able to say our relationship is very good. So, when we started, I mean, I'm being fully transparent, you know. So when we started here in the Plano area, sorry.
We'll talk later.
Yeah. I figured that'd be a sore spot at some point. But anyway, so, you know, we gave $100,000 to Empower. We are fully committed to what Russ and his team here in Texas are doing. When you look at where we're at, we're just not in Plano. We're in Houston. We're in San Antonio. And we've got major infrastructure and operations here in the state of Texas, a lot of it around our military or our defense mechanism. So using Empower and the people that we have there, Avial has been a great supporter of Empower, taken on a few people down there. We've got that's about a 1,500 person organization down there. So we use them to help us get people into the workforce and get people going. So.
Awesome. And Mark, what's your experience, the impact of Empower product?
Well, you know, Jeff, I'll also apologize. We're the largest employer in Irving, although I'm starting to understand why so many of my staff are willing to drive from Frisco every day to get there. I've been involved with Empower at City now for about 3 years. I think the program, as far as I'm aware, in Texas, it's been ongoing for about 4. We've had about 80 interns come through. I think it's right at 86 now. About 50 of those have turned into full-time hires. We retained about 30 of those at this point. A lot of them have they were there for shorter periods of time through contract positions and things like that. It's been an incredible experience. We get people who have some basic technical training, which, you know, to Dwayne's point before, you can't train people on the kind of technology that we do at City. We're too big and too different from anyone else. So the best thing we can do is make sure you're intellectually curious about technology, that you have the capacity to learn it. And then we're going to have to teach you how it's done at City anyway. And I think that's an important point of this whole program. You know, an A+ certification, it's an industry standard. There are very few people that have a job in technology that everything they need to know comes from an A+ certification. But that basis of understanding of technology, that capability to learn the technology is what we really get as evidence out of that. Then we get staff who are now not only supported by the mentors that we have in place within City, but supported by an entire network of people that they've met through Empower, that work at Empower. And so you don't just get an individual intern, you get Russ, and you get Bertina, and you get the entire Empower staff, making sure that these people are successful in your organization, continuing to reach out to them, continuing to help them learn, continuing to help them meet people. So you get much more than an intern. You get much more than a contractor, and then you get much more than an employee, because that support continues. As far as I've seen, in perpetuity. It's only been a few years now, but I believe that will continue.
Thank you. Well, 86 folks coming into the company out of the Empower stream, and several of them staying forever as full-time employees is a testament. And without embarrassing Mark, the city puts a lot of money into Empower. They're a contributor. So we thank you for those efforts.
Absolutely.
Mark brings up something that's important to me. He talks about the curiosity of the veterans and the folks coming in, and that's actually a huge benefit, because troopers are curious people. They go after things. Right from the get-go, they were the ones who raised their hand and said, "Here, send me." And in these days, the last 18 years, it's been in time of war. So the young men and women running around in the nation today with a uniform on joined in time of war. That's an important consideration. That's who these people are. They're service-oriented. They're givers. They're not takers. They're solutions finders. They're decision makers, and they're comfortable in it. And they got that that experience much earlier in life than the cohort that they come from, whatever age group that might be. All of which are the things that I've learned over the past 8 years on how valuable this resource called veterans are to a community. I would never disparage helping veterans, but I would encourage everyone to look for opportunities to leverage what these young men and women are bringing to the table. And all the guys and gals coming out now are all young people from my perspective. But it's a great resource. Are there any questions that you would all like to ask me or the panel here about veterans? Tony?
Well, Tony looked at me when he asked it, so I guess I'll start. Which first, let me say, jokes on these guys here, because really this was designed to be a recruiting tool to get you to consider moving to Frisco. And since other communities got shout-outs, I want to recognize Carrington and Conifer, two of our largest employers here in Frisco, Texas, here today supporting us. Thank you. But Tony, that's a great point, because that's one of the things when we sat down with our leadership team, quite honestly, that I gave feedback on as an outsider, someone who's not a veteran, but just observed veteran groups and their discussion, which was there's so many groups out there that their mission is to support veterans and veterans initiatives. And quite frankly, I think the message gets lost in a lot of them. And those were some of the candid conversations that we had as a leadership team and trying to figure out how as a community we can help. And so part of that really is just making connections and veterans aware of opportunities available to them. And so that's something the committee's working on, as far as whether it's a website, as far as here are all your options available to you, those kinds of things. But, another point that I'd like to touch on from a community perspective, which is an unintended benefit, I think, when we started going down this path, which is all these companies at Frisco are trying to recruit here. And so we're kind of right in our golden era of corporate recruitment, Fortune 500 type companies. It's the strategic mission of the city council to start getting some of those relocations to Frisco. The big surprise, I think, the big aha moment we had over meetings we've had over the last 6 to 9 months is it's a competitive landscape out there. All of us as communities are trying to differentiate each other's. I would say the one thing that in some of these meetings with CEOs and those kinds of things that they said, one of the things that stood out, Frisco's doing a lot of things different. You've got a great story to tell, but tell me more about this veteran thing. That caught my attention, because we as a company support veterans and want to be part of a community that does that. And I remember probably the third time Ron Patterson and I heard that, after the meeting, we looked at that and said, we're onto something here. Companies are taking notice, and it's important to them that we're supporting this as a community. And they mentioned programs like what the Chamber of Commerce is doing, and all these different initiatives and how they're rising up, because these companies now, when they're picking communities, they're looking for communities that support their values and support the values of their employees. And so from our perspective, it was just an added benefit that we never foresaw, that it's actually, this initiative is becoming a great job relocation and corporate relocation selling point that, depending on the company, that's one of the things that we open with as far as things that we're trying to do here as a community. So, I think that's a big part of it, Tony, why it's important. You obviously know that and could have spoken to that as well, but wanted to, thanks for the question.
I think maybe I would just add, too, that we know in the state of Texas there are hundreds of veteran serving organizations. And one of the things that Russ does a masterful job at, really coordinating and recognizing where is it that Empower can uniquely play, but where can we, in a very powerful way, partner with other veteran service organizations. So oftentimes we find ourselves referring veterans to each other, right? Because we recognize that there might be certain barriers that some of our students are confronting that we're not well equipped to resolve. We will have a social support manager on staff who's very knowledgeable of the ecosystem of veteran service organizations, who can refer our students to others who can then provide the direct services. So we just want to make sure that we're not overlapping so much with what others are doing. So we try to find communities where, like I said, there's white space. And I think that it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we're complementing each other's efforts as opposed to competing for resources to duplicate.
Yeah, I think from a Boeing perspective, I think we've always been, veterans have always been a big key part of our mission as an organization, and there are a lot of them out there, but we have a very refined process within the company that helps us to narrow that down, and we do focus on those organizations that we believe are going to provide us the best benefit, Empower being one of them. So, yep, agreed.
I'll tell you, from my perspective, we really primarily focus on Empower, and it's because in my area of city where we're very technology focused, especially here in Texas, Empower is the perfect partner to deliver that for us. I mean, it's basically a recruitment organization for us that we don't pay. It's wonderful. So, it's really been quite advantageous to us, and we haven't seen a lot of that overlap because where we've had other needs, Empower has been able to fill that for us.
Thanks there, Tony. Will?
Just real quick, does Empower does the training, the IT training, do they then work with other staffing companies for placement, or are you doing all of the staffing placement yourselves?
So oftentimes we will work with managed service organizations to place our students who might not necessarily get a full-time headcount position, right? So Worldwide Technology, Beacon Hill, there's a number of staffing agencies that we'll work with, or managed services firms who will then place our students in large corporations, and then when headcount opens up, they'll often be the first in line to be able to get that full-time job with benefits. So we'd like to build relationships with those corporate partners directly, primarily to understand what their training needs are, but also because we find many of our corporate partners are a source of volunteers. So we do get volunteers who guest lecture, who do interview reviews, or interview practices, resume reviews, professional development. So that direct connection has proven to be important with us, for us, but we're open, right, to talking also to staffing agencies to help in different ways for our students, right? First and foremost, our metric of success is how many full-time jobs do we get our students. We want to really exceed that 80% threshold with every class.
Thanks, Martina. Any other questions from the floor? Well, any last words from our panel members? Mark or Dwayne?
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. I would say with the additional $1 million commitment that we have with Empower that we've just recently announced, and the partnership now with WWT to bring on these staff over a 6-month contract with full benefits. On top of that, as we go around to our corporate partners like Dell EMC and say things like, hey, we want you to come and help us with this program, we see that the other companies that we work with, the vendors that we have, the major corporate partners, they get very excited about coming in and helping us. So we've just announced recently that Dell has offered to provide free training to all of our Empower staff as they're going through this program. So all of the Dell, EMC, VMware, Pivotal training programs that are available out there now being provided free to all of the Empower staff that we have. So again, not to reiterate how selfish we are in this, but the benefits that we get out of this program, the benefits that we get out of hiring veterans is that everyone comes together to work with us to make these some of the best staff that we have, and they continue to do so and continue to do so. So it's a wonderful program. I hope we've been convincing in that at least.
Thanks, Mark. Dwayne?
Yeah, we're glad to be part of the North Texas community. We're almost a year in. We're excited to get up and going and getting working more with Russ and his organization. I think for us, from a Boeing perspective, it's just not the division I'm the IT leader for. We have 3 divisions. We have a commercial division, the defense division, and then our services division. But where we're growing is in the cybersecurity space. A lot of growth in that space. We can't tell you where that might be, but the skills that are being offered, which is why I know y'all are working with my boss, Ted Colbert, our CIO, and we definitely need those skills going forward and look forward to working more in the future.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here, but also for this roundtable, because I think what we're doing in trying to build these coalitions at Empower on a very small level is what you're doing on a massive level here in the city of Frisco. And the more that you can catalyze the corporate sector to understand the value of hiring veterans, the better off everybody will be. So thank you.
And Jeff, I'll give you the last word here.
Sure. Well, thank you. Let's give JP a round of applause for being the tree moderator. And of course, our guests here on the panel, thank you for being and joining with us today and sharing your thoughts and insights. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. These are all the leaders in our community that are out here in the crowd today, from elected officials to people who serve on our boards and commissions, to people that run charitable organizations, to our business leaders throughout this community. And so thank you all for supporting this initiative. We do it for a few reasons. We do it as a council to show you that we support the business community. The mission of these each quarter is to maybe get you to think about something different that maybe you weren't thinking about in your day-to-day business and kind of pique interest and, of course, make connections. I hope that certainly happened today as far as how you can think about how you go about your business a little bit differently. Thank you to all the veterans that are here, the committee, for supporting this initiative. We're going to continue to grow it throughout the city of Frisco. And our next Mayor's Business Roundtable is, what month is it, Lori? Is late August. Jeff Smith, general manager of the Omni, it's going to be at the Omni. He wants to make it big. He says he's going to have a topic so big and audacious that he can't even announce it today. It's that secret. So stay tuned for that. He's excited about the opportunity to host it and make it a big deal. So we're looking forward to the next one. Thanks, Russ Medina, for putting this event on and helping us organize it. You know, of course, Jason Young, who owns this beautiful venue, he could not have been a bigger supporter of mine. Thank you, Jason. Lori Medina, my chief of staff, so I'm so lucky to have her, but more importantly, Frisco is lucky to have her working full-time on initiatives here. Thank you, Lori. And again, thank you all for being here today, supporting me in this mission, and supporting our veterans, and continue to network and make connections, and we'll see you in late August. Thank you.